One of the hottest topics in the business motivation environment is the 10X thinking. This 10X concept that suggests that we think bigger, we supersize our dream, we supersize our goal to basically go after a future we don't know how to create. And so as I understand it, what the proponents are speaking about is 10X. Why should we 10X? Because if we 2X, we just basically do more of what we already know and try to improve it, which they suggest is harder in terms of effort than to mix it up and to inspire the confusion of a 10X goal. The confusion means I don't know how to create it. And it's interesting because it suggests that in order to get to my 10X, I have to rethink everything. I have to let go of everything and I have to rethink everything. And as I heard that, it really made me think a couple of thoughts about people in their performance curve, athletes, entertainers, successful people that set out to create something and created it. If you look at those individuals, I just asked myself, were they 10Xing? How relevant is it to those that maybe we've encountered in the past that maybe they didn't 10X, but they got to be the best in the world at what they do, and they truly lived out their aspirations, and they created a far more greater level of resourcefulness than the average. Their ambitions were high, their contributions were huge, they were able to make more of what they could bring to the world. Certainly the dream, yes, having a big idea or having a place to go towards is a big thing, and anchoring towards that gave them a sense of orientation and a place to learn. One thing that I also think about is just the basics, the fundamentals of the creative process, and looking at the way an artist approaches a painting. Does an artist 10X the painting? Did Monet or Picasso 10X paintings to bring paintings into the world that they imagined? Did Steven Spielberg 10X Jaws? Yes, probably. At some level, yes. Wanting John Williams for the film was a higher standard than his career probably had earned because of his reputation not being so high and wanting a goal so high. And he did, in fact, get John Williams. So in that sense, wanting what you want is a great thing. What if I 10X everything? What if I 10X my health goals? What if I 10X my parenting? What if I 10X my business goals? Do I need to 10X everything? Does everything need to be on this 10X? Who said so? Does everything need to be 10X? And what it makes me think about is what if I'm 10Xing something because it's jazzy, it's in vogue, it's cool, but maybe the 10X isn't accurate in what I really, really want? What if I want something and I compare it to the 10X and it feels like I'm shooting lower? Does it make me an unambitious person? Does it make me a person who's lowering their standards? I don't think so. I think some things that we create, that we set out to create, we have a lot of convention to create, and that convention is the very basis of where we start. We need to know where we are compared to where we want to be. And in the creative process, the first place you start is germination, and that is to set out to create something that you don't know how to do. You start separate from what you know. So if I'm learning the creative process, then naturally I learn how to create something that I don't know how to do. And isn't that a similar model to 10X? Do I need to 10X everything? Now, one thing I think the 10X piece has a very profound influence on is how do I get there in terms of my help? If the ambition that I have is larger than what I know how to do, and I'm aware of my strengths and limitations, and I'm aware of my impediments and obstacles, I get resourceful by looking for help because that's the most efficient way probably to get there. And then the question is, what is the help that I need? And am I willing and able to go get that help and to inspire, motivate, lead that help in a way that's going to be helpful? So having a bigger future requires you to be more dependent. And in that case, it requires more teamwork. So if you're needing a team, is the goal big enough? Because if you could, just tackle it all on your own, if you had every skill to tackle it, well, then you wouldn't need other skills. And most businesses, most entrepreneurs are setting out to create something much bigger than they have in the past. And so therefore they need relationship to get it. Makes a lot of sense. But again, does every goal need to be 10x? And again, it's worth thinking about. I mean, I love the idea. I'm not a cynic and I'm not exactly a proponent. I'm somewhere in the middle. And I think there are individuals and situations where certainly the 10x piece could be a great facelift and a great overhaul of someone that doesn't know how to think, that doesn't do the kind of visioning, crystallizing intent, and imagining how they or what they want to create. I think one of the processes that we often skip when we're setting out to create any goal is conceptualization, which is looking at all the different options on the bucket list that we may want to consider. And whether we can do it or not, whether we can attain it, whether it's realistic or not, isn't probably helpful, because then we're looking to repeat things we've already done. And yes, we may have certain experiences, skills that lend itself to create something. Knowing that we know how to create a fire is good in making one. Knowing that we know how to camp out in the woods is good to know in setting out to create some great camping experiences. Knowing what we know about raising our children in sports and supporting and empowering them in their choices is a great thing to remember in supporting them in their next step. So there's something to say about current reality that cannot be forgotten. That what I know isn't limiting me as long as I know that what I know is conventional. And the minute that I set out to create a goal and the conventional elements won't support it, then I got to go and do invention. And that's disruptive. And the invention is a process of experimentation. And it's a laboratory mentality. That is the essence of creating, is I'm learning by doing. I'm learning by action. I'm learning by certain uncertainty. But I'm setting out to create my intention because the intention is something I care about. Why do visions happen? Because we care about them. Why do we pursue visions? Because it's not about who we are and our identity. Having a vision or creating a vision doesn't make us better as a person. It doesn't define our moral worth at all. It can't. What you do, what you have, what other people think, in reality cannot define you. And a lot of people aren't in reality. They're in their own story about that. That doesn't help, because when things don't go your way, and they probably won't when you're setting out to create something because you haven't created a lot of it before, we tend to take it personal. And we don't know how to take our identity out of the process. And if we don't do that, then we can't use failure as assets. So failure is the essential ingredient to learning, and how we organize our decisions out of failure is the essential ingredient to increasing capacity. And increasing that capacity means we move from point A to point B so that we can see the possibility of C. And that gives us some sense of optimism or some sense of certainty. But yet that certainty isn't needed. It's not an ingredient. Speculation and predictability are not essential in creating anything. Artists don't predict paintings and then create them. I mean, furniture people that are creating high-level design furniture don't believe they can create the furniture to create it. See, and I think this is where it gets interesting, because a lot of the proponents about this, they take a very psychological view to creating, when the creative process is not a psychological process at all. If you go and look at a professional who creates for a living and brings creations into the world, and they're professional, they don't take a psychological view to the process. What they believe about themselves, what they believe in general, really doesn't matter in any way. It's not relevant to creating or getting better at anything. And so I think to myself, what really is the game about of this creating and this 10 times ambition? To me, it's about getting really good at what you do. And the way to get good at what you do is to practice what you do. And the way to motivate that practice is to set an intention that you practice towards. And then you understand the game as you go along. And you master the game by having a really clear, accurate picture of current reality as best you can, through your eyes, through other people's eyes. You get feedback. That's why there's coaches. And by understanding where you are compared to where you want to be, that focuses the mind on what it is to change. What do you keep? What do you improve? What do you start? What do you stop? And through those strategic decisions, you either move toward or match your behavior toward the intention, or you don't. And if we think we're doing the right things, but yet we really don't know what we need, this is where we can be blind, is that our theories of action, at best, are guesses. And what's confronting is that a lot of our theories of action will be wrong. What we set out to create on the basis of what we conceive is a model that's tested in reality. And that the evidence basis of reality, the feedback we get based on the actions that we intentionally take, the informed actions, may or may not serve what we're doing. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, great too. Both scenarios have equal value. So you either learn or you win. That's it. If you quit, it's because the level of difficulty is so high. However, when you're creating anything, the level of difficulty is the level of difficulty. It's not about that. It's about how much you want what you want. If I want to create a child, how hard it is to conceive a child isn't an issue. The fact that I'm creating a child is, one, staying true to my dream, staying true to what matters to me. And whether I can create it or not, I'll tell you when it comes into reality. Believing is believing. It's not part of the creative process. What you believe is what you believe. It's not relevant. If you think it's about belief, you'll make it about belief. But you don't need to. So you set what you want. And rather than compare it to whether it's good enough, big enough, all that, just let it be what you want. And if it's wanted, it could be something very easy to create, but ease isn't the basis of creating it. That's not the reason why you do it. It's what matters to you. And that's the heart of the matter. What really does matter to you? And some of the things that matter to you now may not matter later. It's true. You will change your mind. It isn't about being sure. It's about knowing what matters to you right now. And if this matters to you, this idea that you're conceiving of, and you select that idea to create, you move into a choice, then you set out to create it. And by doing so, you focus your attention on that very thing. And you carry it out over time. And as you take action, decide, communicate, do all those behaviors, as you throw the ball again, as you move towards it, as you take action, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. As you reflect on the action, the next moment in the action, you begin to apply what it is. And half of the process isn't to learn from the past. It's to really learn the future as it emerges. It's to reflect for the action. It's to reflect from what is emerging. Because not everything that we learn is based on what we did. What we're learning is based on hunches and inklings and instincts that come from a deeper place of what we sense, what our inner voices tell us. And this is called presencing. So creating and presencing kind of go hand in hand. Creating is the process of creating on behalf of a goal that endogenously I choose, which is internal to external. But exogenously is that external to internal is also part of the design process. What I listen to, what stands in need of me, what calls me to act, what destiny is calling in me, what am I in service to? We often sense something based on the content around us that brings us into contextualizing what has heart and meaning for ourselves, what helps us see our own agency, because we're acting on behalf of a few things that we may not see from the beginning, but we really learn our vision as we go. And we need to remain open and organic about pursuing that, because it's always in a state of constant alteration and change. Being directional, being intentional, isn't making up your mind about what you're going to do and staying committed to the process. It's about continuously pursuing what you love and bringing that into reality for the sake of it. And that, in that sense, you're true to yourself. You're acting on behalf of something that authentically does matter. And as you stumble upon things, and you will, and see and sense, you can compare. Not to what you should do, ought to do, or what others do, but compare it to what really does matter. What am I wanting to create? Another thing you might say is, who do I choose to be? You might say, well, there's a place I want to get to. It's not about being better than you are because you're not good enough. It's not about changing who you are because you need to improve upon your weaknesses. Then you'll have a lot of strong weaknesses. So don't work on yourself. The idea is not to work on yourself. The choice to be who you want to be is a choice to be who you want to be. And you can choose how other people see you. Not because you're ashamed of what they might see and therefore you should put on a front. That's ego. But what you're doing is you're choosing because some idea that you hold as a concept matters. And that's the heart of the matter. It's an anchor into the present. And it organizes your action. So here are the points. Whether it's 10x or not, that's not the deciding factor. What matters to you is the deciding factor. 2 is that when you're creating, you set out to create something separate from what you know. The whole point of 10x is just that, is to organize a different path out of something new that you seek to create that you don't know how to do. But it's normal in the creative process to do that. It's not some abnormal facelift or overhaul to have a 10x thought. The creative process begins with something like a dream. It starts with conceiving and conceptualizing of all the possibilities and then selecting the one that you choose most. It will require you to rethink things. Of course, that's what learning is. It's to follow a track. It's to follow nature's pattern. Because the point of reference of current reality, if you see where you are, if I know I'm in LA and I'm flying to New York, I have to look at the fact that I'm in LA because how do I get to New York on my plane? How do I organize my flight in the best way to get there? I got to know where I am. So you have to teach yourself reality. It's a fundamental choice to be true to yourself. It's a fundamental choice to choose to be the predominant creative force in your life. Sure, it's an orientation of the spirit. It's an orientation of the creative. It's not reacting and responding to the realities that progress upon you. No, you may discover things as you go. Reality is the greatest teacher in the world. It's an acquired taste. So one of the things that is going to need to be missed is that you let go of your expectations. When we make rules up about what it should be or what it's supposed to be or what we're supposed to be or how it's supposed to go down, we will premeditate our disappointments because reality is a wild card. It does not comply with your expectations. Your expectations don't serve you in the creative process. Your intentions serve you in the creative process. So the outcome that you're focusing on is the key. And the approach, the bumpers you put up to get there, to throw the ball again and again down the lane to get that strike. And to go all the way is to remember what matters to you, is to reflect on the current reality in where you are on the path compared to where you want to be, and to continuously change up your course of action to either get to where you are or you're not getting there. And both of those data points are to be treated with equal value. And as you keep what works, improve what is working, start, stop, you make those decisions. And as you do, you set out and see if that worked or this worked or that worked or this worked. And that process of assimilation is one between the emotional tension of every setback and frustration to being buoyant and bouncing to that's information you didn't have before, so use it. And if you know that overall that the universe is a friendly place, that life isn't out to get you, and that it isn't a neighborhood of scarcity where you're running out of resources, you learn that abundantly you have resourcefulness within you, and that you know that fountainhead of resources, you will draw forth all sorts of cool aspects of what you know that you didn't know when you're creating. You know a lot more than you could ever say. And so I call it like throwing the baby in the pool. When they swim, they don't know that they knew how to swim, but they instinctively do know how to swim. And I think we have a lot of tacit knowing like that, where we don't know what we know until we do it. And that's a neat thing that happens when you're setting out to create anything. And so the point is that you can reconsider anything in your life building process, in your business, your health, your finances, your relationships. It's all up for grabs. And that you can create your life as art. I think that's a way of life. And that as you do that, you get more involvement in your life because you're moving towards something that you give your brain great instructions to work on, and you're learning as you go, and it's really enjoyable. It's very pleasurable to be learning how to create something that you haven't brought into being yet. There's a challenge to that brings your perceived skills up and up and up. And as you develop that skillful means, you develop a reliable process for creating it. And then as you do, you acknowledge what was complete, and then you set out to create another one upon that level of momentum. And so it becomes a series of stretch and consolidations over a lifetime of great creative acts that you set out to do. Creating is also about a way of being. It's not just a way of doing, but it's learning how to be. Be in a way that you can assimilate the learning. And so in order for you to bear witness to what's really going on, you need peripheral vision, not just future vision, but the relaxed attentiveness and the wise heart to be able to make space in yourself for what it is that you're creating. Learning happens not only intellectually, but it happens through the emotional intelligence that you have. You feel what you see. And it also happens in a more, emergent sense. And what I mean by that is you're living in a time reality where things are happening by accident, serendipitous moments, sometimes coincidental. You may feel a sense of being in a certain flow where things that you're intending or thinking about seem to be mysteriously showing up in reality without the effort. That's a product of the structure that you're in. It's not necessarily the law of attraction. It's not like your inner vibration is calling on powers and that you have this amazing connection to the explicate order in the universe. I'm not sure I understand all that in physics, and I don't think we need to. It's ineffable. Just turn the light on. Don't tell me how the light bulb works. You just know it does. So when you set out for an intention, whatever it is that you set out for, you're going to see things more often. That's called the reticular activating system in your brain. And it's a base of cells at the hypothalamus that ignite you to see things in reality that are consistent with what you're looking for. You take your intention, you put it at the center of your awareness, and you're more likely to spot things in reality and ignore things that are not that. If I had you go out in nature and go out hunting, you will tend to see more things that are consistent with what you're looking for. Why will you notice that more? Because you're looking for it. Energy follows attention. And what you put your focus on expands. And so as you do that, you build your life as a creator, and you go after dreams and creations, values, things that matter to you, because they do. And it's pretty much up to you. It's a very private matter to your own soul as to what does matter and doesn't, because none of it needs to be justified. So anything you do will never define you as a person. And whether it's big or small, the point is, does it matter or not? And then you choose or don't choose. You desire and then decide. You consider it, then you decide, and then you set out to create it. You learn, you assimilate, complete, and then you grow. And that cycle is the cycle of using the creative process. We're talking about the greatest process of endeavoring in the human experience, the greatest process of building civilizations in the history of our time on this planet. It is an amazing thing to use the creative process. So I indulge you and encourage you to consider what your life as a creator is right now. And that everything that you do today, everything that you set out for in the next 90 days, every New Year's resolution that you set out to create, to revisit that and to go over with yourself is to browse internally what really matters to you. And if you do the things that are most indispensable to you, not just the important stuff, not just the pure frills, those are great too. I want you to have it all. But when you identify hierarchically what really does matter most, it comes from thinking time. And if you're not thinking about it, then you're not thinking about it. You may be too busy being busy to do what could make you a lot less busy. And you may want to give yourself a higher level of priority in considering what matters to you. You're not being selfish to want what you want. You're being self-full. And in doing so, you're being guided by a very fundamental decision, which is to take responsibility for creating creations in your life. rather than reacting and responding with a better attitude to get altitude, as they say, it doesn't matter what your attitude is. Human species are very lazy anyway. And if you look at a mother or you look at someone trying to hold a career over a period of time or raise difficult children, if you tell them to have a positive attitude, they'll punch you in the face. They will, because they don't need that attitude. And you'll find that most people come by what they create without working on themselves. Yes, I'm sure there are a few habits and things that you could change. Yes, there probably are a few attitudes that may be in the way of what you want. And those are worth considering. But for the most part, it's about focusing on the creations. It's not focusing on you. And the less you focus on you, the better creator you will be. The more you focus on yourself, the lousier creator you will be. So stop working on yourself. It's not a deficiency-based process. You're not upgrading your software. You're not becoming or conforming to what you want. You're not deserving what you desire. You don't need to deserve what you desire. Just desire. That's it. Do you want what you want? And then choose it. Set out to create it and look at how you get better at it. As you do, apply it. If you're not getting better at it, delegate it, automate it, eliminate it, curtail it. You've got options. It's learning. It's about keep, improve, start, stop, KISS. So you've got the tools. Now it's about getting better at creating. And the only way to get better at creating is to start creating. And you can start creating something today. Even if you start creating a pie in the kitchen. Even if you start creating a poem. Even if you start creating a room, a space. Start creating a garden. Creating. Start creating a new hire. Start creating a new vision for your career. Start creating a new version of the relationship that you're in. Start creating a new way of looking at a hobby, of what you want to create and contribute outside in your life. Start creating or thinking about what you want to create in the charity that you're contributing to. Just considering what matters. Start creating what it is that you want to become proficient at. Maybe it's French. You want to learn a new language. What do you want to create? It's all up for grabs. It's exciting. And you may have so many ideas, and so the way to sort through those ideas is to consider what it is that matters among them. And that's where the thinking time comes in, is to lay out all the elements. You know, I would imagine Alfred Hitchcock, he loved creating movies. He hated editing the movies. But he loved vision because he would lay out all the options and then he would compare and contrast and live in one and then take himself out, live in the other, take himself out. He would bring his imagination into the action upon the selection that he would make. And then he made that choice. Now, you may say, well, when I choose that, JD, what if I don't choose the other? Well, that doesn't suggest that it's fatal. It just means that you're putting one in first gear and you're putting the other in the second. As a matter of fact, hierarchies of importance is exactly what simplification means. It's not about curtailing or ridding everything on the outside. It's about knowing what matters on the inside that you bring outside. So if you know what matters most, you're going to get a little easier about declining some other options that don't matter right now. One is in pole position, the other isn't. It's okay to select that. And it doesn't mean that you're declining the other one. It's not like some big lament on an opportunity cost is upon you. Oh my gosh, what if I don't do it? No, it just means you're putting it over there. You're going to get to it, but it's not right now, and yet it still matters to you. But it doesn't matter as much. Right? So A1, A2, A3, A4 is a process of consideration. It's not what you should do, ought to do, or would do, and it's not what other people think you should do. It's what you want to do. The only bad decision is not make one. And just make one. You don't have to be right. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It means that you made the one that appears to matter right now. Okay. Maybe it didn't matter as much later on and you have options. But you do it because it matters right now, so you go with it. That's it. It's not about commitment. It's about choice. Because commitment implies you don't have the option to change it. You're forced. That's because you may not trust yourself. You don't need to get into that concept or that talk. Whether you trust you or not, whether you did it or not in the past, okay. But setting out to create it is not about, well, I said yes because I know how. No, you say yes and you figure out how. The way through how is yes. What do I want to create? So sit down, take out a white sheet of paper, put down the subject matter or the domain of concern that you want to look at, and ask yourself, what do I want to create? Health, what do I want to create? Business, what do I want to create? Relationship, what do I want to create? Right? Finance, what do I want to create? Fun and leisure, what do I want to create this year? People that matter to me. Who do I want to create some time with? That's it. It's not whether you can or can't, or whether you think you can or can't. That's not the point. You'll figure that out as you go. That does not disqualify or qualify a choice. A choice is a choice. So I've wanted to be a soprano singer all my life, but I'm a baritone. Even though I'm not made to be a soprano singer, I still want to be one because I want to be one. And I don't need to make it a 10x goal. It doesn't matter. I just want to create it because it does. And that's simple. So let's go create. Now, if you'd like some more help with this, if you'd like some accountability, motivation, organization, structure, clarity, all that, maybe it's time to get some help to become more proficient at the creative process in your business domain, life domain, relationship domain. It applies to all those elements. And if you want to dramatically accelerate that, speed that up, if you want to experience more capability and confidence in that, then maybe get yourself coached, because that's what the helping process is about. Helpful help is doing something for yourself that you can't do. And that means getting help, professional help and guidance on how to draw forth your capacity to create that and to build that. You know, apply the state of mind, the kind of boundaries, the kind of focus that comes with increasingly performing and positioning your performance, applying your strengths, delegating your weaknesses, having a good toolkit to be able to get more efficiency and effectiveness at what you're trying to create. That's the coaching relationship. And the one-on-one coaching is great because it gives you the depth. You know, in groups you can hide, but in one-on-one coaching, you're exposed and you have the psychological safety to really be with your coach. And it's that skillful transparency, that honesty that really serves you. The more honest that you get, the more sustainable the changes are in your life. So, highlevelperformance.com, that's where we are. And our job is to build business and build better life, to grow leaders and grow companies, and to liberate leaders and save geniuses. That's our work. That's what I do. I've been doing it 25 years. I've got over 55,000 coaching sessions behind me, and that's equipped me and prepared me for a lot of help that I can be helpful with. So I hope you look us up. You can email me at vipcoach@highlevelperformance.com. That's vipcoach@highlevelperformance.com. 714-375-6624. That's our line for enrollments. And I look forward to hearing about how this audio was helpful in discussing 10X and the creative process. Have a great day. Make it productive.